This is a mass grave on a tiny island off the coast of Australia. The skeletons buried here show cutlass wounds and crushed skulls, blade marks cut deep into their bones. In 1629, around 300 people survived a shipwreck that brought them to these islands. They thought the worst was behind them. They had beaten the sea. They believed they were the lucky ones. Over the next 3 months, about 120 of them were murdered, not by an enemy, not by strangers, by the survivors of the same shipwreck. The Dutch East India Company was the most powerful trading company in the world. Not really a company, more like a small country. Its own ships, its own soldiers, its own money. The Batavia was its brand new flagship. First voyage, 340 people on board. Sailors, soldiers, families, and a fortune in silver coins and jewels sitting in the cargo hold. 3 men on this ship matter most. The commander, Francisco Pelzayert, senior man on board, sick for most of the voyage, weak when he needed to be strong. The skipper, Jacobs, he hated Pelzayert, the kind of hatred that festers for months on a ship with nowhere to go. And then there was Cornelis, junior officer, heavy debts back home, a past he was running from. And somewhere along this voyage, he had picked up an idea, a belief that sin wasn't real, that a man couldn't truly be guilty of anything he did. That idea sounds harmless in a quiet room. In the wrong man's hands, on a ship in the middle of the ocean, it becomes something else entirely. Jacobs and Cornelis started planning a mutiny, seize the ship, take the treasure, turn pirate, but before any of it could happen, let the ship hit the reef. The shipwreck didn't create a killer, it just set one loose. June 4th, 1629. The Batavia was sailing fast in the dark. A lookout saw white water ahead. He called out. He was told it was just moonlight on the waves. It wasn't moonlight. The Batavia hit the reef hard. Around 40 people died in the wreck itself. The rest, 300 survivors, made it to a nearby island. Picture it tiny, flat, bare coral and sand, a few hundred meters across. No trees, no shelter, no fresh water, none. They had beaten the sea, and they had washed up somewhere with absolutely nothing. 2 days later, Commander Pelzert climbed into the ship's longboat and sailed away to find water. He didn't find any nearby, so he made an extraordinary decision. He would sail that open boat 3,000 kilometers across the Indian Ocean to bring back a rescue ship. And here is the thing, he actually made it. But back on the island, the survivors didn't know that. All they knew was that their commander had sailed away into the horizon one morning. They felt abandoned, and the most senior man left on those islands was Cornelis. Cornelis had a problem. When the rescue ship arrived, the mutiny plot might come out, and the punishment for mutiny was death. So he made a plan, a cold one. He gathered young soldiers around him, gave them weapons, better food, power, made them loyal. Then he took control of everything. The boats, the weapons, the food, the water. And then he started reducing the number of survivors on purpose. He sent groups off to other islands, looked sensible on the surface, spreading people out so food would stretch further. It wasn't sensible, it was strategy. Divide them, control them, eliminate them. One group of 20 soldiers, led by a common soldier named Weeby Hayes, was sent away without weapons to an island Cornelis expected would kill them. Back on Beacon Island, the killing began. At first, accidents. A group sent off on a raft never came back. Then it stopped looking like accidents. Mutineers moved through the camps at night. Knives, swords, working quietly so survivors not yet targeted wouldn't panic. Just think about where these people were. Tiny flat islands, nowhere to hide, no trees, no walls. You could see a man walking toward you from across the sand, and there was nothing you could do. The killers controlled everything. If Cornelis decided you were gonna die that day, you were going to die that day. 120 people were murdered. Women, children, entire families killed in single nights, and every killer was made to sign his name to a written oath. Once you signed, once you killed, there was no going back. Tied to Cornelis with ink and with blood. Remember Weeby Hayes, sent away without weapons, left to die quietly on an empty island. He didn't die. He found water, he found food. Survivors started arriving, people who had escaped the massacres on rafts, and they brought the news of what was happening on Beacon Island. Hayes understood immediately. Cornelis would come for them eventually, so they built a fort. Bare hands, almost no tools, limestone blocks stacked into walls. Those walls are still standing today, some of the oldest European-built structures in Australia. When the mutineers finally came, Hayes's men were ready. They fought them off every single time. Cornelis couldn't break them, so he went himself, under a flag of truce, to negotiate. Last mistake he ever made as a free man. Hayes's men seized him the moment he stepped ashore, and then, out on the horizon, a sail appeared. The rescue ship. Both sides realized the same thing simultaneously. Whoever reached that ship first controlled everything. Hayes got there first. He climbed on board and told the commander everything. The mutineers were captured. Cornelis was already in chains. Trials were held right there on the island. 7 were hanged. 2 of the youngest were given a strange punishment, marooned on the Australian mainland and simply left there, never seen again. They may have been the first Europeans to ever live permanently on the Australian continent. Their punishment, by complete accident, made them a footnote in the history of an entire country. And Weeby Hayes, the common soldier nobody had ever noticed, was promoted, rewarded, treated as a hero. He arrived on those islands as a nobody. He left as the only man who came out of the entire story with his name worth anything. 300 people survived a shipwreck together. They should have all come home. Instead, on a tiny flat island with nowhere to hide and nowhere to run, 120 of them were murdered by the people sitting right beside them. Not monsters, not strangers, sailors, soldiers, some barely more than boys. Cornelis gave them permission, and a frightening number of them simply said yes. One common soldier said no, and that is the only name from this story worth remembering.